Hello YouTube. Well, finally came. Very excited. What is it? Yes, what it says in the box. Rigol, my new oscilloscope. What does it look like? I'll grab a knife and we'll find out. Stand by. Another box. It's starting to look like those Russian doll things. Probes, power cord, USB cable. Software and a quickie user manual. And this is the Rigol DS2072A, part of the 2000 series. Start this baby up, see what it looks like. And it tells me I've got trial, I don't know, disappeared, but it tells me I had the trial version of the RS-232, the SPI stuff. Kind of a shame they don't just give it to you with the scope, considering you pay almost $1,000 for the scope. But we'll try it and see what happens. I love the big screen. I'm used to using a Tektronix DS2014, which is not a bad scope, but I'd like to see how this thing works. A lot bigger than the Tektronix. Well, I like the scope probe kit they give you. It's got the spring-loaded gripper with 4 color codes, so you can mark your scope probe with whatever color you want. It's got a couple of little ground probes to put on so you can do more high-speed stuff. And they give you a little adjustment screwdriver so you can adjust your trim capacitance on your scope probe. Well, it's a little disappointing, I have to admit. These scope probes are kind of on the cheap-ass side. It can move around and they kind of flop. They don't really stay open or stay closed that well. Have to see how they work here. I'll hook it up to the test input, see what the signal looks like. Well, there's the test pattern. Probe definitely needs to be compensated, so go ahead and try that next. You want a nice square. There we go. I think that should do it. Let me give you a quick look at what they send you for a manual. It's they give you a quick start manual here with the scope. It's pretty standard, pretty basic. It'll get you going. I actually downloaded from Rigol's website. I put it on my tablet computer, a much more detailed manual that goes with this scope. So you can just go to the Rigol website and download the manual for whatever scope that you have. This scope has a really nice help section. There's a little help button here that you press, and it tells you what all the keys do when you press them. Buttons to the right are for the F keys, and the measurement F keys are to the left. And it gives you a pretty detailed description of what everything does. You can change by pressing the keys on the left or right side, or you can turn the intensity button here to move that cursor around to something else for a different selection, that is. Pretty cool stuff. Then you just press the help button again to get rid of it. One thing that takes getting used to is if you try and just push this to turn it off, you can see the scope kind of, there's no rubber feet on it, so the scope kind of moves around, but it's real, I mean, it's not real thick back in this area, so you can easily wrap your hand around it and just push it with your thumb and turn it on. Alright, I'm going to do a startup time here. Let me get ready. And it looks like 22 and a half seconds. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the screenshot mode or the single shot mode. Let me just show you quick what I'm doing here to the circuit I'm using to capture the single mode or the snapshot mode of the scope. I've just got a 24 volt DC coming in here through a relay. It's going through the transistor at 2N2222. I've just got a switch, push the switch on, turns the transistor on, and turns the relay on, and I've got the scope probe here. I hold the scope, or I hold the button in, press the single shot of the scope, release the button, and then look at the electromagnetic kickback of the relay. Got my 24 volt DC power supply. There's my circuit. There's the button. I'm just going to go ahead and press that. And then I'll adjust the scope and I'll release the switch. Here is the trigger menu here, or the trigger section of the scope. If I want to do a single shot, I can press this button. You can see it goes to normal. Press it again, it goes to single shot. And the button up top goes to single shot. And when I trigger, there's the scope triggered. And the run stop button is red. If I want to get rid of that trigger and go back to just a plain old normal scope mode, I can just press that and it goes right back. I press the single button here. It does the same thing as the other menu, it just waits for the trigger. Then when it triggers, it goes back again to run stop. It's stopped right now. I press the button and it goes back to auto. Real simple. So let's see what this thing does. I'll press the single mode again and we'll see what that looks like when it triggers. I'll release the button and you can see that. That is really nice. That is a really pretty picture. Not the signal. You can see that's looks horrible. I do like this waveform. This is really nice and clear. It's almost as though you took a picture of a analog scope and froze it on the screen. It's really sharp. It's way more detailed than in any other digital storage scope I've used so far. I had kind of a funny scenario today. I got a call from a representative from Rigol today, wanting to know if I had any questions about the scope and how it was going. I was taken back by this. I'm sure the guy probably thought I was mentally challenged or just not with it, because it was silence, stunned silence for, it felt like a minute. I'm sure it was only a few seconds, but it felt like a minute. And went back and forth, and I just told him everything was going great. I haven't done much with the scope. And so he, just told me that, to give him a call if I had any questions. I was so taken back by that. Isn't that odd? When you get good customer service, it almost shocks you. I'll give you a scenario as to why I was so shocked. A company I do a lot of work for has a Tektronix TDS 2014, I believe is the number. And that scope has had some problems. I don't know if it's a software glitch or if there's something wrong with the scope. So I called Tektronix to find out what the deal was. And I tried getting a hold of these people by email, by telephone, for a solid month, several times a week for a month. I finally got a hold of someone on the phone, explained the situation. They said, okay, we'll put you in the queue and we'll have someone call you when your name comes up. Well, that was a year ago. I guess my name never came up. I never got a phone call. I never had one email given or returned. I think it probably just, you go to the email or you go to their website, it probably just goes into a bit bucket somewhere, and it just goes nowhere. You don't get anything. They don't see your questions. So that's why I was kind of taken back when this representative called me from Rigol, and then he asked me about the company, and I said, well, you know, it's not really a company. I'm just a one-man band out here, just you know, doing whatever work I can get. It didn't even faze the guy. He still gave me his number where I can reach him, his name, and said, if you have any questions, call me back. Thumbs up to Rigol. Excellent customer service. Keep that up. I'm just going to show you the auto ranging features of this scope next. I've got this little switching power supply brick hooked up to my power source, and I'm just going to go ahead and probe pin 2. Pin 2 is the output of this regulator, and it switches the inductor on and off, and it's got a kind of a strange signal. So I'm going to go ahead and probe that pin and hit the auto button on the scope. Alright, there is the auto button. I'll just press that and it'll go ahead and automatically switch. Oh, there it is. You can see all the harmonics and all that. It picked up everything, picked up the switching of the inductor in and out. Automatically set everything up. Very nice. As you can see here, this scope has a lot of push buttons and a lot of these little rotary encoders. Which I'll show you this one here. You can put the horizontal line back to the 0 point, or the center point there. You just push that in. All these buttons pretty much have a push in, except this one with this big indentation. You think that one would push in, but that one is pretty much the only one that doesn't do it. And this button here is the intensity button. This is probably the or the rotary encoder, that is. This is going to get the most use out of any button on this scope, and the reason being is that is your adjustment for pretty much everything. Here, I'll get to another. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. You push that acquire menu, and this will acquire your inputs. You can either push this button again to get to the next menu selection, or you can turn this rotary encoder, and then when you want to enter something, or when you get highlighted on what you want, you just press this in. It actually takes a little bit of practice. This thing is really touchy. You wind up getting other things here, and if you just turn it just a little bit where you don't want it, it'll go automatically to the next section that you didn't want. Also with this thing is if you're sitting down, a lot of problems I had, you can see my hand kind of naturally goes, just kind of goes over those buttons. I was trying to get the single or the snapshot done, and I was playing with this button a lot to get the menus in and out, and a lot of times I would wind up hitting these buttons when I didn't want to. That's kind of an annoyance. So you just have to be careful of that. Otherwise, like I say, that's going to get the most use. That's your selection. It's almost like your mouse for the scope. Also, if you're waiting for a teardown on this scope, I am not going to do a teardown. There's other teardown videos of these Rigol scopes that people have done a decent job on, so I am actually paranoid that I would take it apart, and my luck would be I wouldn't be able to get it back together, or something would break, and I cannot afford to void the warranty in case something goes wrong. I'm going to need this thing fixed under warranty. It does have a nice 3-year warranty, so that's a nice perk. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and show you the record functions next, which has to do with those buttons. I've got my little switching power supply. I'm going to go ahead and measure the output of that again, and record that signal. As you can see, there's a lot going on in there. It looks kind of strange, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the record signal so I can show you what that's like when you got a signal like this. Alright, we'll try this again. The scope has been giving me some problems, but I'm going to try and see if I can't make this work. There is our waveform. I'll press the record. Alright, now it recorded what it was going to record, and what I'll do is go into the menu, switch it to playback, and you can see that it will start playing back where it started at, and it just keeps, you can keep flipping through here. I'm using this little jog dial here in the middle to go to the waveform. Otherwise, you can use that's the coarse adjustment there, the outside knob. You can see when I turn that, it goes pretty quick through it. I'm going to go ahead and go into Analyze function. That's actually pretty cool. You can see that I can go through these waveforms one at a time, and it gives me the frame that I'm on. You can see it kicking the inductor, and then it starts to settle down before it does it over again. That's what the switching power supply looks like. It's actually kind of a neat waveform. And if I can remember, there's your pass-fail. We don't really have a pass-fail hooked up, but you can hook this up. If this were in a production environment, you could actually save the waveform as a passing or failing waveform. And you could hook up your scope, and it would actually, you could have a pass-fail. It would actually tell you how many failures you had and how many times it passed. I am not going to do that, so now I remember time tag. You just press that to open it up, and you can see that little time tag opens up there to tell you where you are in the frame. It's kind of nice. It tells you the date, and it tells you where you are in the frame. You can clear the menu out of the way if you don't want the menu. That's the record function. When you want to stop the record function, you can either press this red button, or you can go through all the menu nonsense and go ahead and stop it by using your little button here and going up, pressing stop, or pressing off. I'm just going to press the button here. It's way faster, and it takes everything away, and you start all over again. Well, this is odd. Kind of glad that happened while I was doing the review. This scope has locked all the buttons. I cannot do anything. Can't go to the menu. I can't make anything happen here. The whole thing is locked up. It's all completely locked up. That is strange. That's never happened before. I'm going to go ahead and restart, come back and see what happens. Alright, I'm back. I'll see what happens now. It did it again. There is something wrong with this scope. I can press the button for a couple of times, and then it completely locks me out of the scope. None of the buttons work. Very strange. That's very disappointing. I may have to contact Rigol, find out what's going on, because this scope is not doing it. I've restarted the scope and it's not helping. Well, the menu thing, I don't know what the deal was with that. Seems to have solved itself. Seems to be working okay. I just basically shut it off. I restarted it. It still didn't work. And I did that a couple of times and it's still locked up. It's baffling to me why it did that. That seems to be working now. I shut it off and I went and did something else for 10 minutes. Came back and it started working again, so obviously there was a glitch there that was still there. Yeah, it seems to be going okay. Well, I'll chalk it up to a glitch, but I'm definitely calling Rigol and find out what's going on. Maybe there's a firmware update or something on this thing that needs to be downloaded. Well, I called Rigol about this problem with the scope buttons freezing up and the whole thing just locking me out and not letting me be able to do anything. It was kind of nice. A secretary didn't answer. That was directly to a support technician. And since I've only had this scope for a couple of weeks, I said to go back to the place I bought it and just call it an RMA and return it, and they'll just send me another new one. So I have to turn this off and rebox it and finish the video when it comes back. Well, I contacted T-Equipment. I got an RMA number, so I'm going to return the scope and get an exchange scope sent back to me. And it took them a week to send me the RMA number, but they apologized for the delay and thanked me for my patience, so I guess I don't have a problem with it. Got my return carton, and that will conclude part 1 of the review. Make sure you subscribe so you can get part 2 of this review in your inbox. See you next time.